There comes a quiet moment in life, one that sneaks in without warning, when the relationship between parent and child quietly shifts. You may not notice it right away. At first, it's subtle. A look, a tone, a decision made without you. But suddenly the roles are no longer what they used to be. You spent years, maybe even decades, raising them. You stayed up during sleepless nights, made sacrifices they'll never fully know, gave advice you hoped would protect them from the same mistakes you once made. You were their guide, their protector, their home. But now, something has changed. They no longer seek your wisdom the way they once did. Your suggestions are brushed off, your concerns seem to go unheard. Sometimes they interrupt, roll their eyes, or talk down to you, as if time erased the value of your voice. And what hurts most isn't just the words. It's the feeling of becoming invisible in the lives you once held so tightly. If your children have started treating you with less respect than you deserve, you're not alone. It's painful. It can leave you feeling frustrated, helpless, even angry. There's a part of you that wants to shout, "Do you remember everything I've done for you? Don't you see how much I still care?" And yet, that kind of confrontation rarely brings the healing you're longing for. Here's the hard truth. Demanding respect usually doesn't get it. But that doesn't mean you're powerless. In fact, there's something much more powerful than fighting or pleading. There are small but life-changing shifts in how you carry yourself. Shifts that can quietly remind your children of who you are, without a single argument. In this video, I'll walk you through 6 powerful actions you can take when your children stop showing you the respect you deserve. These aren't about control. They're about reclaiming your quiet dignity, your emotional strength, and your place as someone to be honored, not out of guilt, but out of genuine love and admiration. Let's begin. Action 1. Stop chasing their approval. One of the most common and heartbreaking mistakes parents make as they grow older is trying too hard to please their children. You may recognize it in yourself. You go out of your way to say yes, even when it's inconvenient. You sacrifice your own needs to avoid conflict. You adjust your life to fit theirs, hoping they'll see it, appreciate it, maybe even thank you. But here's the painful paradox. The more you chase their approval, the more it slips away. Respect doesn't come from putting yourself last. It comes from valuing yourself enough to set healthy boundaries. Let me share a story with you. There was a woman named Margaret. In her younger days, she was bold, independent, a woman with a voice and a spine. But as the years passed, she softened. Not out of love, but out of fear. Fear of being left out, of being forgotten, of losing her connection to her children. So she started saying less. She let them make every decision, even when it made her uncomfortable. She let them talk over her, even when it stung. "I just want to keep the family close," she told me once. But in her silence, something else happened. Her children began to see her not as a respected elder, but as someone who would always bend, always agree, always step aside. She lost her voice, and with it, their respect. If this sounds familiar, don't blame yourself. Many loving parents fall into this pattern. But here's what you must remember. Real respect starts with self-respect. You don't earn your place in their lives by making yourself smaller. You earn it by standing tall. So stop chasing their approval. Say no when it's right. Speak up, even if your voice trembles. Show them that your feelings matter, not to make them feel guilty, but to remind them that you are still you. The more you honor yourself, the more others will follow your lead. Action 2. Don't argue. Lead by example. When someone you love disrespects you, it's tempting to react. You want to explain yourself, to defend your choices, to remind them who you are and everything you've done. But take a deep breath and ask yourself, has arguing ever truly brought you peace? Real respect isn't won through heated words. It's earned in silence, in calm, in grace, in presence. I once knew a man named Frank. He had been a school teacher for 40 years, the kind of man who commanded a room with quiet authority. But at home, things were different. His grown children dismissed his advice, ignored his stories, sometimes even laughed when he corrected them. At first, Frank tried to fight it. He raised his voice, listed his sacrifices, demanded to be heard. But the more he fought, the less they listened. Until one day, he made a different choice. He stopped trying to win them over with words. He started showing them, instead of telling them, what strength really looks like. He listened without interrupting. He spoke calmly, but firmly. He walked with the dignity of a man who knew his worth, and expected it to be seen whether or not it was spoken. And slowly, something shifted. His children began to lean in, to ask, to listen. Because they no longer saw a desperate father, they saw a grounded man. If your children disrespect you, don't lower yourself to their level. Lead, stand tall, speak less, but with meaning. Let your energy speak louder than your voice. And most of all, never forget this. True power lies not in forcing someone to hear you, but in giving them a reason to want to listen. Action 3. Reclaim your emotional independence. Perhaps the hardest lesson of all is this. You cannot place your emotional happiness in the hands of your children. You may love them deeply. You may miss them when they're not around. But when your sense of value becomes dependent on their attention, you give away something sacred, your inner peace. People, even your own children, tend to pull away from those who emotionally lean too heavily on them. It's not because they don't love you, it's because pressure changes how they see you. What was once a relationship of love becomes a source of guilt or obligation. Take Helen, for example. A kind, devoted mother. Her life had always revolved around her kids, but as they grew older and busier, her days grew lonelier. She waited by the phone, hoping for calls. When they didn't come, she made them herself, reminding them how much she missed them, how long it had been, how sad she felt. But her calls, instead of drawing them close, began to push them away. They answered less often. The warmth faded, until Helen made a change. She stopped calling first. She joined a book club, took up gardening, reconnected with old friends. She started living again, not waiting. And that's when something magical happened. Her children started calling her, not out of guilt, but because they missed her light. The truth is, when you stop needing your children to fill the emotional gaps in your life, they stop seeing you as someone who's empty and start seeing you as someone who's full, someone inspiring, someone whole. So take care of your spirit, invest in yourself, rebuild the parts of your identity that have nothing to do with being a parent and everything to do with being you. Step 4. Set boundaries and enforce them. One of the most common reasons children stop respecting their parents is because the parents unknowingly allow it. If you let your children speak to you with sarcasm, dismiss your feelings, or treat your time as if it's worthless, they will continue, not because they're cruel, but because people, especially family, tend to treat us the way we teach them to. Setting boundaries isn't about punishment or distance. It's about clarity. It's about calmly defining what behavior is acceptable and what isn't, and following through when those lines are crossed. I remember Robert, a former businessman who ran his company with strength and order. Yet, when it came to his grown children, he became passive. They interrupted him mid-sentence, rolled their eyes at his advice, even criticized his lifestyle. And for years he said nothing. "I don't want to stir the pot," he told me. But silence, he learned, wasn't peace, it was permission. Then something shifted. One day, when his son interrupted him, Robert looked at him and said, "I'll continue when you're ready to listen." When his daughter brushed off his thoughts, he said, "You don't have to agree with me, but I do expect respect." And when they crossed the line again, he didn't yell or complain. He simply said, "If I'm not treated with basic courtesy, I won't be part of the conversation." They resisted at first, but over time, something changed. They realized he wasn't trying to control them, he was honoring himself. And in doing so, he taught them to honor him too. If your children don't respect you, ask yourself gently, have I been clear about my limits? Or have I been quietly accepting what hurts me? Because if you don't set the boundary, no one else will do it for you. Step 5. Stop giving. When there's no gratitude, love gives, parents give, it's in your nature. But when giving becomes one-sided, when your time, money, energy, and care are met with silence or entitlement, it doesn't nurture love. It breeds resentment. And worse, it teaches others that your generosity is endless and expected, not appreciated. George was one of those fathers who never said no. Financial help? Always? Last-minute favors? Of course. Changing his own schedule to make theirs easier, every time. But instead of thank yous, he received complaints. And when he finally needed support, his children were too busy. So George made a bold shift. He stopped offering help before it was even asked. He stopped sacrificing his time when it wasn't respected. He even started saying no, not to punish, but to protect his peace. At first, his children were confused, even upset. But eventually, they realized his help was never an obligation. It was a gift, and a gift should never be taken for granted. If you feel underappreciated, pause and reflect. Are you giving because it's healthy, or because you're afraid to stop? Because sometimes the most loving thing you can do is pull back, just enough to remind others of your value. Step 6. Build a life that doesn't revolve around them. One of the most powerful, healing things you can do as a parent, especially in your later years, is to create a life that feels full and meaningful, with or without your children's constant presence. It's easy to make your children the center of your world. You raised them. You gave your heart to them. You naturally want to stay close. But if your happiness depends on their calls, their visits, their attention, something precious inside you begins to fade. And slowly, they stop seeing you as a vibrant person and start seeing you as someone waiting for them to make you whole. Eleanor, a widow in her 70s, went through this. After her husband passed, she poured herself into her children's lives. She checked in daily, offered advice constantly, tried to fill the emotional emptiness with their company, but instead of drawing them close, it drove them away. Then Eleanor made a beautiful choice. She joined a local reading group. She began volunteering at a nearby shelter. She traveled with a friend to places she had always dreamed of. And gradually, her children came back, not out of duty, but out of admiration. They were curious about her again. They asked questions. They wanted to hear her stories, because they no longer saw a mother waiting by the phone. They saw a woman living her life with courage, joy, and purpose. So ask yourself, do they see you as someone who's just existing, or someone who's truly living? When you step into your own light, they can't help but see you differently. And that shift brings respect not through demand, but through inspiration. Respect cannot be forced. It cannot be begged for, but it can be inspired through the way you walk, speak, and show up in your own life. So if your children have begun treating you with indifference or disregard, don't beg, don't rage, don't shrink. Instead, rise. Respect yourself first. Withdraw emotional dependence, set clear boundaries, stop giving without acknowledgement, and above all, build a beautiful life that belongs to you. Because when you do these things, something extraordinary happens. Your children begin to look at you differently, not as someone clinging to the past, but as someone deeply rooted in their own worth. And that kind of respect? It doesn't need to be asked for. It's freely given, because it's deeply earned.